People in Congress are way too old. Hi, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. And this question of the age of our members of Congress has become relevant once again, not just because they're all very old and they're dying in office, which is a problem in and of itself, but two very famous football coaches were fired, retired, whatever you want to call it, today. Bill Belichick was let go by the New England Patriots. It was a mutual parting of ways, but it's a little bit like a mutual breakup. Somebody initiated it. And Pete Carroll of the Seattle Seahawks was moved from head coach to an advisory role, away from the position that has any actual power to a position with virtually no power, only power to advise. They were both 72, I believe, was the number. Oh, and there was a third, but this was in college football. Nick Saban, perhaps the most successful college football coach of all time. Nick Saban of Alabama, if you're into such things, Roll Tide. He retired, stepped away. At the height of his game, no less. He was still recruiting at a very high level. So these guys, at the height of their success, stepped away or were fired. And yet, we have members of Congress who are aging to the point where they have dementia in office. And obviously, we don't know if, President Biden has dementia in office, but he's old enough that we have to ask the question. And he's also old enough that he's seen multiple decades in office. This is a problem. Football teams recognize the need to have fresh blood every once in a while, have fresh ideas, sometimes things just get stale. Football teams. But you know why they make that decision? Because they're companies, they're billion-dollar enterprises where their goal is to make money. Now, granted, the goal of Congress is not to make money. The goal of Congress is more important. The goal of Congress is to govern the nation. And Congress arguably has the most important job in governing the nation. As you might know, as if you took a high school civics course, or you've read a book recently, or read the paper recently, we have a democracy, not a democracy. Excuse me. We don't have a democracy, we have a republic. And in that republic, we vote for representatives to lead our country. We vote for an executive leader, the president, and we vote for a congressional body, the Senate and the House of Representatives. And we trust these governmental bodies to lead us. The role of the executive is defined in the Constitution, as is the role of the legislative branch. And the design of those is to check each other. And of course, there's the judicial branch, which is not voted for, but is a check on both the legislature and on the executive. But the fact that our leaders have been in power forever tells you that they're not governing the nation. They are simply trying to solidify their own power. They simply want to be in Congress. They want this to be their job. That's a problem. In the original construction of the country, and people may quibble about the history, but this is the way it was, you couldn't make a living in Congress. No, it was an honor to serve your country and lead your country, but you also had to run a farm back home. And yeah, you can quibble about, well, Nick, some of them in the original world, in the original construction were slave owners. Yes, some of them were slave owners, and we can argue about the morality of owning slaves. Now it's a bad thing. Back then, sorry guys, people did it. It's not good. It's not a good look for the country. It's a black eye on the country's history. That's a poor turn of phrase for use here, but I stand by it because a black eye is what happens when you get punched. Look, The age of the members of our Congress is a huge issue when the world has changed so much over the course of their leadership. Biden started in office, in public office, in the national public office, I think in the 70s. The 70s alone were a wild time. You get to the 80s, things are changing a little bit. Throughout the course of the 90s, the world went from analog to digital over 10 years. And yet we are still being governed by a group of people who live in an analog world, who don't see the need to update laws, who don't see the need to do simple things. Like, for example, I don't know, removing marijuana from the Schedule 1. For those of you wondering what that means, Schedule 1 is how illegal drugs are, the most dangerous illegal drugs are classified in the United States. You put them on Schedule 1, and that comes with certain restrictions, huge restrictions on them. Mary Jane is on that list, despite not being anywhere close to, say, I don't know, heroin. Heroin and marijuana share a place on Schedule 1. We live in weird times, folks. But this is not deemed an issue. Another issue with this is that these guys, they received their training, whatever you want to call it, 40 plus years ago. Training has changed. Education has changed in the 40 plus years. They make policies based on what they learned 40 years ago. And I don't care if they say, well, no, I keep up with the times. No, you don't. You know how I know that? Because at the age of 33, I can't keep up with the times. New words pop up every day. Culture changes. Culture shifts. The will of the people shifts. The fact that they are able to solidify their power isn't a testament to how good they are at their jobs. It's a testament to how good they are at rigging the system to solidify their own power. And you know when new people usually come in? When the current members of Congress die. That's a problem. Because unless you want to tell me that every member of Congress is so startlingly good at their job that they shouldn't be removed from power, which we all know to be bull, we all know that to be bull hockey, then the only reason they're still in power is because they're able to redistrict the hell out of places and keep themselves in power that way. Mitch McConnell is, I picked on the Democrats here, let me pick on the Republicans for a minute. Mitch McConnell is literally freezing in the middle of speeches. And you know what the sad thing is? He's going to get reelected. And he's going to die in Congress. We just had a member of the House of Representatives, Dianne Feinstein. I don't want to mispronounce her name. Apologies if I did mispronounce her name. She died in Congress. Not literally on the floor of Congress, but she died in Congress. And not before having to give up power of attorney on almost every other part of her life. You give up power of attorney on parts of your life, it means you are no longer competent to make decisions on those parts of your life. And yet she still had a vote in Congress. I made a quick gesture with my head for those of you listening to the podcast here of disbelief, because it's wild to me that we have football coaches making $11 million, $10 million, $12 million, $20 million, $40 million a year who step away because they realize things have sort of moved on past them. The game has changed. Or they get fired because the people who run the organization realize that the game has moved on. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the people who run the organization of the United States. We, all 330 million of us. The game has moved on, and we need to start voting people out of office. We need to start holding people accountable. You make a bad call, you send us to war, vote them out. You failed to defend the country, vote them out. You got to do something. We got to do something. Because it's getting wild out there, and it's getting unsustainable. Anyways, I've reached the limit of my time. If you think that Congress is too old, drop me a like and subscribe. If you don't think Congress is too old, maybe you should reconsider before voting. I would look into the people you're voting for. I'm not going to look into the people you're voting for because that would be tyranny. But you should reflect a little bit on what you think is acceptable leadership. Anyways, you don't like what I said? Drop me a hate comment. I get them. I enjoy them. They make me giggle. Someone said the other day, I stand with hummus. Hummus is a delicious dip. It is, frankly. I didn't quite understand the point of the comment, but I do love hummus. I'm Lebanese. What do you want from me? Look, I'm at the end of my time. Vote the bums out. I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. Have a great day.